We're at 94%, I believe,
96.
right? 96%. I think at this point, we could definitively say that, again, Bernie Sanders won the most votes in Iowa.
He won the most votes in the first round and the second round.
Second round.
The SDE, what does that mean?
State delegate
elect.
Something. It's another third.
It's the third
sort of metric
that basically awards delegates.
Yeah, that's like very easily fudgeable and roundable, apparently. But Sanders is down by 3 of those, 547 to 550. I guess what matters, quote unquote, is the delegates, and they're tied at 11. So in terms of most metrics, Bernie is the winner.
Yeah.
State delegate equivalent.
State delegate equivalent.
Oh yes, that's from ancient Greece.
Yeah, that's the birthplace of democracy. Well, maybe actually it might have been. that something like that probably would fit with the ancient Greek definition of democracy.
I like to think
more so than one person, one vote.
I like to think they didn't have vendors making things more complicated than it has to.
That'd be amazing if you were reading some like Plato Socrates symposium and then you realize you're like, this guy's trying to sell like a new tablet system.
This guy's got a new organization called Pegasus.
Yeah,
New tablets
it's called
that
Pegasus
are unreliable.
LLC, and apparently they're tablets that don't actually register what you scratched on them.
Yeah, they're really hard to chisel into.
Yeah, they're totally unchiselable, but they actually got rewarded a fat contract from the wine merchants in town that have a pretty strong bias towards one of the candidates. I'll just leave it at, I have no doubt that, there's incompetence, there's institutional bias. I think
opportunism.
There's opportunism, maybe. If Pete Buttigieg won the most votes and pulled off a shocking victory, I do not think that this process would go this way. I'll leave it at that. Now, on the other hand, don't fall into, complete
we still won.
That's my thing. Is I absolutely think some BS is being pulled here, and Bernie won. And I will say, look, in 2016 and 17, it was very important for people to really hammer home that Hillary Clinton won more votes than Donald Trump, that a bigot fear campaign was not the majority of the United States. That talking point, particularly in 2018, started to become a big problem because it started to get deployed against any reform in the Democratic Party, any strategy to reach out to new voters, and really just progressive politics and any type of left politics, right? So that became a very problematic formulation for people who just wanted to guard their own self-interest and not have any change and to undermine Sanders. That being said, this shouldn't be a controversial point here that, of course, we should have electoral systems nationally and in states and everywhere imaginable where who wins the most votes wins. And that's certainly become a Democratic Party talking point. There's a clip floating around of Pete Buttigieg saying just that a couple months ago. So Bernie Sanders won. He won Iowa. And it looks like he will actually probably come out in a delegate count as well. And all this has done is just muddle the media narrative for a couple of days. This is where are we at? We're at 3 first or 2? Okay. So Krystal Ball has called this Krystal Ball has consulted her crystal ball and given her a very accurate analysis. This is Krystal Ball from yesterday, saying that we don't know the state delegate equivalent count yet, and we're all and I thought Dems were all about the popular vote anyway.
For you, the story is still the process, yes?
There are a number of stories here, but the process is horrendous. How can you feel good about a situation where party elites decide to selectively release partial results that disproportionately benefit one candidate? Paul's absolutely right. If Pete ends up being the winner of the state delegates, he's been completely robbed by this. But let's not miss the fact that we don't actually know if that is the case. And Bernie Sanders very much leads in the popular vote here as well. So I think it's been interesting, too, the media narrative that has come out of this. I heard you talking earlier about how Bernie didn't meet expectations. He literally won the most votes. At least that's what it looks like right now. I'm not sure what other metric you were supposed to judge by. I mean, this is a guy who's been dismissed throughout this entire campaign, asked by the media when he's going to drop out, caricatured as angry and divisive, and he has a low ceiling and he can't possibly win. He actually got the most votes in the state after Democrats have been running around for 4 years talking about how the popular vote is supposed to be what matters.
Indeed, co-signing all of those sentiments. And guess what? This was yesterday. Now we're at this morning. It looks like the ball has been working very effectively.
Krystal Ball, the moment you've been waiting for. You were right. You were way right. You were wicked right yesterday when you sat here on TV and said, look, we need to wait till all the results are in. You said you thought that Bernie Sanders would make up that gap. He all but has. It's basically tied with 97% of the precincts reporting. Your take on what this means.
Well, I want you to think about this from the perspective of Sanders supporters who do not have a lot of faith in this process or the Democratic Party to start with. All of this enabled Pete to basically claim a fake victory for days, enabled by the Iowa Democratic Party, the maker of this app, and the media that ran with headlines that were, Pete's in the lead. And the people who are real victims here are who is putting Sanders over the top right now or close to the top right now. It's the immigrant workers and the Latino working class people that campaign painstakingly organized, and their voices were erased from this for days, which in my mind is downright criminal. So Pete is not a victim here. Pete got 3 days of saying he was the winner. There's a new tracking poll out that has him up 9 points in New Hampshire. So all of this completely goes to show you that Sanders supporters are going to be absolutely mistrustful of this process, and rightfully so. Why were these votes released in this way? Why were there, even after they came out, so many errors? How can anyone even have confidence that the numbers are right at this point? It's absolutely outrageous. And the fact that those immigrant workers had their voices robbed for so long is so wrong to me.
Oh, she's 110% right. It's a relaxing clip when all I can do is completely co-sign. But again, for people who support Bernie, he won. It was always going to tighten up in New Hampshire. In the long run, if Pete is the main competition, that's great. This is a guy who's got a huge amount of problems, and whose main substantive record as the mayor of a college town is serious institutional racism problems in a police force. And then even some questions with regards to his own relationship to it and donors that there's a lot of secrecy around, but need to be reported. This is somebody who has engaged in a ruthless and racialized campaign of gentrification. And this is somebody who obviously would lose to Donald Trump. So people need to, again, Bernie just had another amazing fundraising month. Knock on doors, make calls. And I would earnestly say that if you support another candidate, I'm not, look, I think what I think of different candidates is pretty transparent, and that's my job, to be honest about what I think. I think there's folks who support a candidate like Warren who, might have more center-left politics or have been persuaded by various things. But I would just say, and certainly this would apply in my view to Gabbard or Yang folks, if you have at some point some commitment to some type of either progressive policy priorities or you are really concerned about institutional change in the Democratic Party and in this country for that matter, there's one game in town left, and everything will be institutionally against that candidate. Now, again, transparently, I've been saying that for over a year. There always was only one game in town in terms of that, in my opinion. But now we're at a point where the numbers are coming in and, this is what it is. So if that's your concern, it's time. And by the way, I have no doubt for a split second. I mean, some folks that supported Warren were saying this precise argument several months ago, just based off of polls. So I'm saying this based off of what's actually happening in reality. I like this. We did a little
I'm a big fan of etymology.
Yes, you are. Go ahead, man.
And etymology is basically the origin of words and the roots of it. So if you look at unity up in the etymological dictionary, it comes from Latin unus, unitas. It means one. You can't unite around two different candidates. And if
Tell that to the New York Times.
yeah, exactly. Look how much. Look what effect that has had.
Yeah.
A lot of potency there when you split that up.
Bunch of dopes.
And I mean, we'll probably get to more of it in the fun half, but they're numbers that basically Warren siphoned off a lot of Bernie 2016 supporters, as
Yep.
you know, we could kind of expect. And their second choice in the caucus was not Bernie; it was Buttigieg or Klobuchar. So she's basically laundering them into worse voters. So I mean, it's time for them to work something out. If the people who said that they're in a formation, they're going to work together, and it's time.
Right. I mean, it's beyond
Let's
time.
see it.
I never bought that. And I don't I think if Warren drops out, I don't expect that she'll be endorsing one way or another.
And if it doesn't happen,
if
it's
you're
not going to be because we were rude on Twitter. It's because it's going to be because people were right about Warren and that she's a snake.
And they also, and they just understand how politics works. But I mean, my God,
Well,
geez,
I mean the Warren campaign generally.
Right. But I mean, whatever. I mean, certainly, look, and by the way, if it was because somebody was rude, if you're willing to throw away single payer because someone was rude to you on Twitter, you should go to Guantanamo. How about I escalate the stakes? That was a joke. But I'm just saying, you're a narcissistic idiot if that's the case. But I don't think, I think for a lot of real people voting and caring about this stuff, I mean, I really the door is open for, a sincere effort that's going to come down to one candidate versus a massive amount of effort against him. Valentine's Day is special.